All right, thank you so much, Skelly. So, hello everyone. I'm B. Some of you may know me as B, some of you just know me as Outlaw, some of you may even know me as Tori, but not many of you do. I am a high school student taking my AP elective or my elective as AP Computer Science. And I just really like tech, to be honest. I've been a part of Digital Overdose since January 18th, 2021. That's about a year ago, a little over a year ago. My first introduction with STEM is was from Girl Scouts of the USA. I am still a part of them. I'm going on my 8th year now, but I haven't been programming until about 2 years ago. So it's fairly new to me. My favorite animals are frogs and bees. And I'm just really interested in helping end the classist gap in tech, to be honest. There's a lot of countries out there that, you know, may not have access to the tech that I have, and I want to fix that. So, just a little side note and disclaimer, I don't have any present employers or past employers, but anything I say or do in this program is not a reflection on them. And I am not an official historian. I'm just a person in their laptop. And a lot of this information has been lost to time, sadly. So it's really just hard to find. So if anything's wrong, please don't feel afraid to correct me, to reach out, because I would love to talk with you. Thank you. So, first thing, we're going to have 3 chapters. The first one is on ancient civilizations and our pre tech era. Then we will be covering World Wars One and Two, which is our beginning of the tech era, technically, and cryptography fails and some techniques used by children. So first, what is cryptography and how are we confusing it with steganography? So steganography means that the message just needs to be uncovered, whereas cryptography means that the message needs to be decrypted. So first we'll be covering our ancient cryptography. Let's get started. So from around the 7th century to the 3rd century, they had the seidel. The seidel is a piece of leather or paper that was wrapped around a wooden piece of a specific diameter. The message is written on the piece of leather and sent to the receiver. The person would have a piece of wood of a similar diameter and would wrap the leather around it to reveal their message. This was used by the Greeks. It was first talked about by the poet Archilogus, and the first directions were written by the philosopher Apollonius. Next, we have Hysterius' servant. My apologies. Now, Hysterius was the tyrant of Miletus, which is in Greece. He learned of the attack of the Persians, and so he shaved his servant's head. He then tattooed the servant's head with his message and waited for the hair to grow back a little bit. There, Asistagoras, his nephew, was able to shave his head and see the message, and they were able to take down their enemies. While this is technically not cryptography, but rather steganography, we should mention it as it was important to the history of cryptography later, as we can still see similar techniques today. Next, we have the Caesar cipher. So the Caesar cipher is an early version of our rotation cipher that was used and popularized by Julius Caesar. He used it in a lot of his personal life and in his military campaigns, and it is kind of one of the things that made him so great. He was really, I guess you could say, iconic. The Wegener cipher was so secure that it was not cracked by not cracked, for 30 centuries. It was created in 1553 by Giovan Battista Belazzo and named after Blaise de Vigenère. It was called the indecipherable cipher by the French. The cipher works by combining the numerical values of the letters in the message with the numerical values of the letters on the table. I have a similar setup here, as you can see. Therefore, it creates a secret message. Next, we will be talking about probably one of my favorite things in this talk, Agent 355. This is also the Culper Spiring Code. So Agent 355 was one of the first spies in the United States, and her identity still remains a mystery today. That's right, she was a female spy. That's so cool. Some things are clear from the way the Culpers talked about her. It is likely that she worked with the American Patriots during the Revolutionary War as a spy and was likely recruited by Woodhull himself into the spy ring. Woodhull was the guy who ran the spy ring. The way the code is constructed indicates that she may have had some degree of social prominence. She was also likely living in New York City at the time, and at some point had contact with Mayor John Andre and Benedict Arnold. She was also only mentioned once in a letter between George Washington and Abraham Woodhull, with little mention of her anywhere else in history. When you decode the Culper spy ring, or the system that they used, the number 355 translates to lady. That's how we know that she was a lady spy. All right, so next we will be going over World Wars I and II, which is the beginning of our tech era. So obviously, if you're like into World Wars I and II, you know, the World Wars, you'll have obviously heard about the Zimmermann Note. This was a note between Germany and Mexico that tried to convince Mexico to join the war on Germany's side in exchange for American land. The British had intercepted this note and decoded it as it was a series of numbers, but it was also in German, so they had to decode it from numbers to German to English. And then they sent it to America and said, hey, this is not good. This became a public outrage. So the contents of the note became a public outrage, and it pulled America into the Great War, as it was called in the time. Now, the grill cipher was a technique for encrypting a plain text by writing it onto a sheet of paper through a pierced sheet. So either another sheet of paper or a piece of cardboard. I believe there are also wooden ones out there as well. The earliest known description is from 1550, my apologies. The proposal was for a rectangular stencil allowing single letters, syllables, or words to be written, then read through the spaces. The written fragments of the plain text could be further disguised by filling the gaps between the fragments with compacted words or letters, thus creating a scrambled effect. The variant is also an example of steganography, as are many of the grill ciphers. There are multiple types of grill cipher out there. Not only was this concept used in World War I by the Germans, but it also has been used by the American, known as the Zodiac Killer. I'm sorry, Twitch. Please don't yell at us. We have the Navajo Code Talkers. Now, this is probably my second favorite. What they did was very beneficial and amazing. It was a group of 29 men, all from the Navajo Nation, that arrived at Camp Elliott near San Diego, which is where I'm located out of, so that's pretty cool, in May 1942. The code used word association by assigning a Navajo word to military phrases and tactics. mathematics. The system enabled the code talkers to translate about 3 lines of English in 20 seconds. That was faster than any machine at the time. Around 400 code talkers participated in every major Marine operation in the Pacific theater, giving the Marines a large advantage. During the nearly month-long battle for Iwo Jima, 6 Navajo code talker Marines successfully transmitted more than 800 messages without error. So they were all perfect, which is amazing. Marine leadership noted after the battle that the code talkers were critical to the victory at Iwo Jima. At the end of the war, the Navajo code remained unbroken. The hard work of the Navajo code talkers was not recognized until after the declassification of the operation in 1968, and American President Ronald Reagan gave the code talkers a certificate of recognition and also declared August 14th as Navajo Code Talkers Day in 1982. All right, the Enigma machine. Now, I feel like a lot of people know about this machine, but we're going to learn about it some more. So I'm excited. Are you? It was created by Arthur Scarbius. It has a lot of rotors with letters on them that scrambled. To use it, one person would enter text on the keyboard and another person would write like what the lights coordinating with the letters were. If the plain text was entered, the illuminated letters are the ciphertext, and the opposite is true as well. So if you put in ciphertext, it would be plain text. The rotor mechanisms changed the electrical connections between the keys and lights of each key press. The security of the system depended on machine settings that were supposed to be changed daily, based on the keys that were mutually agreed on in the past, and other settings that were changed for each message. The receiving station would have to know and use the exact key and settings employed by the first station to successfully decrypt your message. And also on the left, you can see an example of the Grill cipher, which is what we mentioned earlier. We will also be talking about the Enigma machine later. We will be revisiting that. Oh, now is my favorite part of my talk, our cryptography fails and techniques that have been used by children, because children can also do cryptography. And I think that's pretty cool. And a lot of them don't even know what it is. Some of our fails. Now, I'm no expert on this, but I feel like it's still fun to bring up. Okay, the wired equivalent privacy, or the WEP. It suffers from key management problems, poor key entry, and weak key space. It needs to be fixed. The MD5 certificate collisions. They were first documented in 2004, and they were cracked by you could collide documents and executables to make a fake certificate, which is very problematic because if you enter in a fake certificate, then you're entering like the wrong certificate. It's just bad, okay? The Enigma machine. So we just mentioned this earlier, but it failed because of the reuse of settings, reusing the same message key over and over again, and common message formats, meaning if your enemies got too used to what you were using as your key, then it could be easily cracked, easier. Oh, and our Morse code. Now, Morse code never technically failed, but it just died out with technology. And we don't use telegraphs anymore. I don't really know any people who use a telegraph, so I sure don't. I don't know if you guys do, but yeah, it just died out with time. Sadly, that happens to a lot of things. We have some common cryptography techniques for kiddos. So a lot of these have been used in classroom settings, or just like there's a lot of these I learned from stuff I've used in my life, to be honest. Like Pig Latin, we have Pig Latin. Basically, it's the idea of this secret language that little kids have. But where I'm from, and in my past, where I used to go to school, they were pretty strict and you couldn't like goof around, or you had to watch what you say. So around middle school, which would be grade 6, so 11, 12-ish, me and my friends, we all learned Pig Latin. And we would talk in class and be like, hey, can you pass me the pencil in class? Because we weren't supposed to talk, but our teacher would get mad, but they can't get mad because they don't know what we're saying. It was like some weird logic thing. But the next year we had to stop. It was very short-lived because the next year the teacher, well, we also learned classical Latin. So, oh, fun fact, I know classical Latin a bit as well. I'm not enough to make a conversation, but I do know it. So it just made our Latin teacher very mad, and he complained to our maths teacher, and my maths teacher, he knew Pig Latin, so he was able to like get us in trouble and be like, stop talking in my class. But it was really fun while it lasted. We also have Morse code. So we've talked about Morse code. Morse code is easy for children to follow along with. It's fun. It's a bit harder if you hear it auditorily, but it's easy to write down. You might use some of it in our CTF challenges later. You've seen the number substitution cipher and the @bash cipher in easy CTF games before. If you've ever played a CTF, we have A equals 1, B equals 2. That's our number substitution, very easy. And Z would equal 26. Our @bash cipher is just everything is flipped upside down. So A would equal Z and B would equal Y. Many people have used a rotation. Usually it's in rotation of 13, but you can shift the letters of the alphabet to correspond with whatever you like. Personally, I love to use rotation 26, but rotation is probably one of my favorite things to use because I just like seeing the letters shift. You can also use the Pigpen cipher. Now this one's a little bit different and a little bit more confusing, but it's still fun. So maybe for like older kids, there's a grid and an X. And there's dots, and where the dots fall on this grid and X is your symbols. And it's really fun. I really enjoy it. We also have, on Twitter, I put out a CFP of my own, and I got a couple stories. So here are 2 of them from people who have also used cryptography techniques before they knew what it was, because I was like, am I the only one? But I'm not. From Twitter user AJ702, they say, I used Unicode characters as a kid to encrypt my messages until junior high. Didn't know I was using a substitution cipher until many years later. And we also have the second one from an anonymous Twitter user. After reading about Caesar ciphers and similar codes, I started to come up with my own, starting with substitution ciphers where I randomized the letters, but eventually getting to a table of up to 10 randomized alphabets where each letter in an encoded message would be assigned from a different alphabet from the table. And the sentence of alphabet choice would be determined by a numeric key passed with the message. Now that I think about it, I was only a couple small steps away from reinventing the one-time pad at about 9 years old. The only thing I lacked was friends to send those secret messages to. I'll be your friend. I will gladly be your friend, and you could send me secret messages. Oh my gosh, people should send me secret messages. That would be fun. Anyways. We have our historical honorable mentions. These are so fun. They're not necessarily cryptography, but you could see a lot of influence into cryptography-based practices and stuff that we see today. So first we will start off with Cleopatra. While technically steganography, this is a very cute story. Basically, Cleopatra wanted to see her lover safely, so she wrapped herself in a rug and sent it to him for him to literally unwrap. It wasn't really safe for her. There were a lot of people out to get her, historically speaking, so she needed just something to see her lover with, and I thought that was pretty cool. Next, we have the zodiac cipher. Now, it's not associated with the other guy, but the unaliver, but it is a 16-round Feistel-based structure with key whitening. The round function only uses exclusive ORs and substitution box lookups. There are two 8x8-bit substitution boxes, one based on the discrete exponentiation 45 to the power of x, and the other using the multiplicative inverse in the finite field, which is Gaussian field multiplied by 2 to the power of 8. Very confusing stuff, I know. I could not find much on this subject other than one small little Wikipedia article. But if anyone has more information or a video or something on it, I do prompt you to send it to my email at itsbjuice@protonmail.com. And I would love to hear more about this. Ooh, Cicada 3301. Now, I've done a lot of research on this. I will be uploading a research thing onto my GitHub on my extra studies soon. So if you want to learn more about Cicada 3301, I urge you to go check out my GitHub. It's bjuice. And there are 3 known puzzles of Cicada 3301, but only 2 of them have ever been solved. No one really knows who came up with these puzzles or where they came from, but one thing is for certain, whoever makes them is really smart. From accusations of it being a cult activity to the CIA being behind it, or some form of cyber group controlling it, we may never know who's behind this puzzle, but they're smart and they have done a good job in hiding their identity. I respect that. Next is just a little fun like Easter egg that the developers from the United States Digital Service put into their source code. So actually, if you go into the source code of the United States Digital Service, they have this lovely crab. I don't know if you all can see her, but her name is Molly. And she is just the cutest little thing. She is an acai, sorry. She's an image made out of letters and numbers. My apologies. I forgot how to pronounce that just now. So moving on. A lot of you may know this show. It was very popular. It's called Gravity Falls. And honestly, what would be a cryptography talk without mentioning Gravity Falls? Let's be real, especially mentioning like children in our last slide. So it's just, you have to mention it. This show was loved by children and adults alike. I remember watching it for the first time when it came out, and I've actually recently restarted watching it. This show is known to use the Caesar cipher, the Veganer cipher, @bash cipher, the A1Z26 cipher, which is the numbered letter cipher we mentioned earlier, and more during its time on air. This show sparked the minds of many young people and introduced a lot of people to the world of cryptography in an easy to understand and fun format. Personally, it's one of the things that inspired me to start getting into cryptography myself. Next, we have the Zodiac Unaliver. The Zodiac cases are a series of cases from Northern California in the 1960s. About half of his ciphers remain unsolved today, and the others took over 50 years to crack. I believe in 2020, they just cracked one of his ciphers, but they are really hard to crack. And for it being from the 60s, that's pretty good. While his actions were very unacceptable, and we don't know the true motives for why he did what he did, it would be improper to run a cryptography talk without any mention of his ciphers. I do not condone his actions, and I do not support whoever this person is, because we don't know who this person is. There are a couple people who we think we know who they are. I don't condone his actions or what he did, but his ciphers were pretty impressive. I will give him that. Oh, okay, great. So I hope you all enjoyed. I personally had fun. I don't know about you guys. If you ever need anything, or if you would like to talk more or even teach me something, as I'm just a beginner, you can reach out to me on Twitter at It's Juice, LinkedIn, which is my name, Tori Outlaw, but I also go by B. So I would prefer if you all called me B though, but you can still call me whatever. Or you could just call me Outlaw. It's fine. I have a lot of friends. I would love to become friends with you all. GitHub, please check out my GitHub. There's not a lot on it, and a lot of the stuff is pretty all right, if I do say so myself, but I post a lot of extra stuff that I learned. So I did some research onto Stuxnet and the I Love You computer virus a while back, and I know that I have OSINT notes on my GitHub. So I think you all would actually appreciate that if you enjoyed my talk. If you want to email me, I do recommend it. It's bjuice@protonmail.com. Let's see what else. Oh, and of course through Digital Overdose. Just ping me in the server and ask to DM, and I'll get back to you on that. I would really like to thank our members, or our mentors, and the brilliant staff that put together this conference. You should come to the after party and the CTF tournament, because I worked on that. So I'm pretty proud of myself. There's a lot of cryptography in there. I only did cryptography on there. I would like to thank our sponsors. Without you guys, it really would have been impossible to run the con and run it as smoothly as we have. I would like to thank my family for dealing with me, and also the people in the green room, because we were having some problems earlier and we got that fixed. So thank you, everyone.
B, you were so adorable. This was one of the most enjoyable talks that we've seen. You've gotten lots of positive feedback in the Discord. You've gotten a lot in the Twitch chat. Please check it out.
Okay.
Do we have any questions for B?
I'm not seeing anything.
B, honestly, you just you captivated everyone's attention with this.
People Good. I was hoping not to bore anyone.
No, people loved your slides. They loved how enthusiastic you were. You were called adorable on multiple occasions. I mean, everyone loved your talk. So congratulations. You did fantastic.
Thank you so much.